Hey, everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews in E11 enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Jonah Cassidy, Forbes, Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for it goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music, and now heard on hamiltonradio.net, Oldies FM, Diamonds Radio, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, baseball gear. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also t-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. I'll support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. But the Mike Wagner Show, make sure you do so today. We're here with a terrific lady who's a compassion neuroscientist and a meditation teacher. She's also a writer and speaker and author of a new book, Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking. We'll talk about that. She also specializes in neurodevelopment and neurodegenerative disorders and also translates the promise of neuroscience and positive psychology for individuals to live the best quality of life. We'll find out more about that. Her new book basically explores the groundbreaking research examining experiences of unique and creative and intense brains through interviews and also storytelling and also literary science, while advocating for new directives of human creativity and neurodiversity. And of course, she also leads a new generation of meditation teachers, fusing neuroscience with the ancient art of meditation. How does she do it? We'll find out. And live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Los Angeles, the amazing neuroscientist and meditation teacher, writer, speaker, and the author of the new book, Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Dr. Nicole Tetreault. Dr. Nicole, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Dr. Nicole. So you're a compassion neuroscientist and a meditation teacher, writer, and speaker. You specialize in neurodevelopment and neurodegenerative disorders and translates by the promise of neuroscience and positive psychology for individuals to live the best quality of life. Your new book explores the groundbreaking research that examines the experiences of unique, creative, and intense brains through interviews and also storytelling, literary science, and while advocating for new directives of human creativity and also neurodiversity. You also lead a new generation of meditation teachers, fusing neuroscience with the ancient art of meditation, and your book, Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking. And before getting to all that, Dr. Nicole, tell us how you first got started.
Well, my doorway into neuroscience really came out of a drive and a curiosity when my mother was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disorder known as Parkinson's disease. My family and I, we went to the doctor. I was 18 years old when I found out. She was 53. And in one of the very first meetings, I asked the doctor, is there anything we can do? You know, could diet, could exercise, can there be any things that can really support a positive lifestyle for her? And the doctor just came back and said, no, there's nothing you could do. It's neurodegenerative. And out of my personal drive to prove him wrong, I decided to get a PhD in neuroscience and study neurodegeneration and study Parkinson's disease, where I earned a master's in coursework at UCLA. As I was doing that, studying a disease that was so close to what my mother had was very intense. And the other side of the spectrum was to really opened up where I wanted to study human tissue. And I had a great opportunity to do that at Caltech and look at the brains of a subset of population of people with autism. And so I went into really studying autism. And as I came out of getting my PhD, my mother was in her very late stages of Parkinson's disease and didn't have much time to live. And I decided to turn down an academic position and spend the last 3 months intensely with her. And as I did, I kind of made a promise to her and to myself that I would offer and translate neuroscience so people could find the most useful elements of it for their life. And it was really a spark for an honor of her and her legacy of what she taught me to be a compassionate, caring person, which I try to be most of the time. I'm not perfect, but she really taught compassion. And yeah, and as I was doing that, and we had her final stages, I did have a major existentialism crisis, having lost her, where it kind of brought me to meditation. And, George Mumford, the former coach of the Chicago Bulls, who taught meditation to them, talks about the fact that people come to meditation for 2 points, really. One out of suffering and one out of excellence. And for me, it really developed out of suffering, where in her later stages, really recognizing sitting and being with her was a living meditation of being in awareness with what is and who she was in the moment. And so that's kind of the through line. And as I began to study meditation and translate neuroscience, my son was identified as gifted, and everyone's that's so great, your kid's gifted, blah blah blah. And I knew there was kind of another side to the story where he was, he had different behaviors, and he was kind of an out of the box thinker. And we were in a parent teacher conference, and I learned in that conference that he was basically spending most of his recess and lunch inside reading books. And I was super concerned when the teacher said that. And I was like, he needs to be outside socializing. That's what I did. I went outside and I played kickball, and I was like a psycho. I was like, really needed to get my energy out. And he turned to me and he said, Mom, the kids are too much. I just need alone time.
Interesting.
And that was like a light bulb moment where his teacher and I learned that he already knew how to self-regulate. There was nothing to fix. There was nothing to do. There was nothing for him to be different about. And it changed the way that I parented him from that moment on, was to really see him in the best light that I can for who he was, rather than who as a mother I expected him to be, and really allowed him to find his way rather than, pushing him into some sort of box. And as I started to do that, I started to talk about neurodiversity in the brain. And I met James Webb, the founder of Social Emotional Needs for Gifted, and he asked me to write a book. And so then I wrote a book. So, and I spent a couple of years really researching it, reading over 1,000 papers, and really trying to shape our awareness and the collective understanding to really embrace all minds, and seeing like embracing all minds, thinking about it as a neurodiversity movement where everybody can be accepted for who they are, without having to conform to what we call so-called normal.
Mhm. I was just thinking about that. You talked about normal and everything else, where you're trying to put all the people into a box. That's been the big thing where everybody's got to be one and everything. And I got to say this, the whole everything, everybody has to be one is a bunch of baloney. I got to say that. And my thing is, if everybody was like the same mind, same everything else, this world would be pretty boring. But you talked about your son being gifted and having these unique gifts. And what advice would you give to parents out there? How do you recognize your child is gifted, and what are the types of gift that's out there? And it's almost like, how exactly do you handle it?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So, giftedness is a spectrum, just like anything,
Hmm.
and really there are these exceptionalities that an individual can possess, where they could have massive strengths in one area, as well as have and giftedness is really kind of identified as having a strength in a particular area, as well as having creativity and the ability to see forward and create a product out of it. Now, the second part of that definition, it's a bit of Renzulli's, where that I think sometimes giftedness in the school system can be missed, because people who are gifted could have different production and communication styles that can be missed. So the way that Dabrowski and Dr. Daniels really talk about giftedness, that it falls into 5 pillars of kind of openness, where it could be an intellectual ability, an ability for creativity, a physical ability, emotional ability, and a sensorial ability. And you could think about it in that way, where there's an enhanced ability or an awareness in an individual. And then you could also even break it down into Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which has naturalistic, spiritual, and he has 8 different intelligences that he talks about. And so it's really important that, to me, the way that standard giftedness is identified is through testing. And if you have a kid who's twice exceptional, so they're gifted, and then they have a learning difference, sometimes that can mask their giftedness. So it may not show up on a standard academic test that we're looking at. And so what I really like to provide parents with is that, instead of thinking it as so-called gifted, is every child's going to have individual strengths and challenges. And so the important thing is to really bring in an awareness to hone in on their natural strengths, give them opportunities for increased classes, ability to practice their interest areas at home, and, allow them to kind of explore those areas with like minds. With challenges, that's where you kind of need to bring in supports. And often, when we think about this dichotomy between the challenge and the strength, unfortunately, in our school system, there's always been this deficit-based model that we, tailor the mind to see what's wrong and try to fix it.
Mm.
And what I like to talk about more so is that when you lead with a child's natural strengths and abilities, that is going to kind of lead the way, where these other challenges that may need supports, not to say that they don't, their self-esteem and their self-actualization of who they are kind of is better grounded than thinking from a lack perspective. And so that's really what I point parents to. And when I say, when we think about the spectrum of humanity, obviously, the more wealth you have, the greater ability you have to provide these extracurricular activities. You have the ability to bring in tutors and supports where needed. And so for parents where we're looking at challenges in their socioeconomic standpoint, is, there are still things you can do that, are free at home, where nurturing your child, if they love music, there's plenty of apps, there's plenty of different instruments that they can gain access to through different organizations. And I have a lot of different resources on my website that parents can kind of connect with, to bring in these kind of supports for their child.
And do you think a lot of these gifted schools throughout the United States are lacking in those, or what are some of the few that actually do meet the requirements that you listed as well too?
I think it's complicated. I think when you have, there's some charter schools that have these specialized gifted programs that kind of allow for excelling a child, that can work very well. I also think that in the standard classroom, when you think about neurodiversity, 1 in 5 kids are neurodiverse, and they sometimes just come across as like standard, C students. And so their gifts can be missed. And so, I think a couple of things need to happen in our educational system. Teachers, first of all, need to be paid a lot more.
That is very true. I got to say that I've been told
Yeah.
to be a teacher, and I said, and my dad even said this too, that why are teachers being paid, such and such, while today's athletes are being paid like 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, and 10 million. Even like locally in California, Mike Trout was like a 300 million or something. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So exactly. Teachers need support in their classrooms. And I also think financially for themselves, first of all. I think secondly, I do think that the model of, these standardized tests, I think can really do a disservice to teachers and school districts. Now, that being said, of course, we need standards in our societies to see progress. And at the same time, I think kind of rethinking education in a sense of individualized approach where, you could get batches of kids getting specialized education for their needs that meet their needs, as well as, their social emotional environments. And so I would say for teachers, when you think about a classroom, like I just said, if you have 1 in 5, imagine their energy. If you have 20, 30 students, you could be looking at 5 or 6 kids that are neurodiverse, that need special attention perhaps. And that being said, we don't even talk about the mental health and anxiety that children face in school systems now, with testing and just pure safety in the classroom. And so I think that's one element. I think also resources. I think that there needs to be greater general education across educators and in the school system of what neurodiversity really is, what gifted is, and neurodiversity really encompasses giftedness, ADHD, autism spectrum, dyslexia, dyspraxia. And so it's that umbrella that we're looking at. And once there's better awareness of that, the identification can happen. And once a child's identified, you can lead with their strengths and then bring in, supports wherever needed. Because if you're going to have a child that is, let's say you have a child who has ADHD and they're super high energy, and you're having them in a classroom and you're forcing them to sit down when, they need to get up for their physicality, for their body, that could be torture for them.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you're going to get a lot of misbehaving if you don't understand the stem of that behavior. And often we always talk about ADHD as being overactive, but it could also be a child who seems zoned out, and that's inattentive ADHD. And so basically educating teachers about neurodiversity and what's coming into their classroom, because they've been seeing it, they have an awareness and they understand, and giving them proper tools and strategies to work with different kinds of minds.
That's rather interesting too. And you also lead a new generation of meditation teachers, fusing neuroscience with the ancient of meditation. We'll infuse that into the education system. We'll talk about that along with your book, Insight into a Bright Mind. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even love and enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great merchandise, books, and more. Also, don't forget to support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com at the Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you do so today. We're here with the author of Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking, Dr. Nicole Tetreault here on the Mike Wagner Show, also compassion, neuroscientist, and also meditation teacher, writer, speaker, and more. Before we get to more about your book and leading a new generation of meditation teachers, you talked about 2 different styles you had. One was the creative, the physical, and the intellectual and emotional on one side. You also have the naturalistic and also intelligent on the other. Were you able to manage those 2 to fuse together, or is this something that's been going on for a while?
In terms of intelligences, I think people have an array of these. And so it's really how they're, first of all, it's like your genetics, what you're kind of born into this world with, and then how it's nurtured. And so, the way that I really see it, and I see it in relation to brain development, is that each of us is going to have our own unique brain print and brain signature, which leads to having abilities in specific areas, and for example, musicians' brains are more connected to emotion. Who would have thought? But that totally makes sense because, think about the times when you listen to music, the chills that you get, the experience
I can think of
you
so
have.
many. I got music playing my mind right now.
Yeah. And just thinking about lyrics or a song can make you weepy. And so, and I always advocate, for some kids that are nonverbal, music is a great way for them to communicate about their emotions, And so for me, it's, as I've been saying, intelligence is a spectrum. And I think that when we kind of open our awareness to what individuals have to offer and we allow them to emerge naturally and we're present with them, we can see that. But we don't know what's going on in somebody else's mind, and a big part of my understanding for that came with my mother having Parkinson's disease. And through time, there was a motor deterioration where she couldn't physically move. And then eventually she couldn't speak. I knew there was so much going on in her mind that she couldn't verbally communicate. That doesn't mean just because she wasn't nonverbal that there wasn't a lot going on in her mind. And so I think we have the opposite end, even that when we talk about kids that are on the autism spectrum, we talk about high functioning and low functioning. And that's what we're perceiving. And we're having these categorizations of exterior markers for that rather than, than actually knowing what's going on inside, and Leo Kanner, the first one to ever really document about autism, said that people on the spectrum had a silent wisdom, and we forget sometimes, we all like to talk so much that, silence is golden.
I guess silence is golden takes on a different meaning as well, too, in most cases, but don't say that to social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or anything like that. But of course, you talk about ways to stimulate the brains to become a more focused person, and maybe suggest what are some of the ways you can stimulate brains and become more focused, and especially about the adage where it's like they say that the older you get, you less than a brain, but really that's not the case. It's like I'm always learning something new every day. So
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's the attitude you bring to it, right?
hmm
So I think it's when you have that growth mindset that you learn from your mistakes and you keep going. Really though, we know for longevity, there are very particular things that are very important through Rush University. And they found the most important elements for longevity and good health for the brain and body and mind, really, was first having deep social connections. So knowing and having deep social connections with at least 3 people, feeling kind of part of a community really is powerful. The second element was having purpose and meaning. So engaging in something that you love doing every single day helps with longevity. And they found that diet. So eating a non-inflammatory diet that's particular for your body improves your mental and physical health, which makes sense. And we're not going to get into the gut and microbiome on this, but
no.
there's a huge part of the gut brain connection that's really important for longevity. And then ways to really stimulate creativity is, get out into nature. Nature is one of the most healing elements. There are these things called awe walks, where you outwardly focus your attention and you pay attention to the flowers and you pay attention to the trees, and you kind of outwardly gaze. There's also, working with your hands. One of the very oldest elements is our ancestors naturally worked with their hands every single day. So working with your hands for 15 minutes a day stimulates natural creativity. And yeah, exactly. And yeah, get that pen. And or even doing dishes, it could be quite meditative. And then really another way to stimulate creativity is through mindfulness, is becoming mindfully aware of your surroundings. And we know that people who practice mindfulness for 13 minutes a day, it becomes a trained behavior. And in that, you have changes that actually happen to the brain, where parts of the brain that are centered for fear actually reduce in size, in areas that are really important for emotional regulation and in-tune communication and connection show more growth. So actually meditation kind of rewires and grows your brain. There's a lot.
That's really interesting.
And you're not hopeless.
And of course, the Italians always speak with their hands too. So
yeah, that's right.
And you also lead a new generation of meditation teachers fusing neuroscience with the ancient art of meditation. This is something groundbreaking, and tell us about that and what inspired you to lead that new generation of meditation teachers fusing the neuroscience with the H&R meditation. And tell us more about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really important that we can rewire the mind for positive neuroplasticity. And what does that mean? That means you build positive neural networks where you're kind of reconditioning your brain to have kind of greater awareness in the present moment, kind of work through your emotional regulation, and also allow yourself to land mindfully into greater equanimity. A lot of people think meditation is about feeling good and improving, and not to say that, of course, meditation allows for that openness, but really what we're looking for is balance for whatever comes our way. We don't know what life has to offer us. There's so many mysteries in the future, and we could be having the best day of our life, but if our mental attitude toward it is negative, it could be experienced as the worst day. And vice versa, you could be having the worst day, but if you're mindfully aware and you come into it as a state of awareness and equanimity, it's not going to be so challenging. And so for me, meditation has transformed my life in the sense that, I used to experience high levels of anxiety. And through practicing meditation, that worry mind for me personally has slowly dissipated. It doesn't mean that it's ever completely gone, but the good news is that a life meditation is awareness when anxiety arises and being okay with it. And so for me, I just really find it to be one of the best ways to help people kind of regulate and come into the true essence of who they are, rather than operating off of a fear state. And it was really through the pandemic that I felt the call to really offer it and kind of bring in the elements of using neuroscience and how you kind of can rewire your brain, as well as talk about the physiology, and really offer it to people as a resource.
That's really interesting too. And I also thought about we're with Dr. Nicole Tetreault on the Mike Wagner Show with insight into a bright mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking, and of course, you also think about some of the things associated with the brain. What about those with PTSD?
Yeah, so meditation has been shown to help people with PTSD, especially through a cognitive lens. So using it as a therapeutic approach where it's taught through with a licensed psychologist. And in some elements you have to be careful because in PTSD, if you have somebody go into the body, it could actually be activating. And so it has to be done with a trauma-informed lens, where there are safety valves and releases for people who've had trauma, because it could actually, in some cases, meditation can, or mindfulness techniques can actually be activating. So it has to be done with a specific awareness.
That's rather interesting too. And where can we find the book Insight to a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking at Dr. Nicole?
Anywhere books are sold.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And what's coming up for Dr. Nicole? I'll find out just a minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Also brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with author Dr. Nicole Tetreault of Insight into a Bright Mind after this time. We're back to Dr. Nicole Tetreault on the Mike Wagner Show with Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking. And what can we expect from you in 2022 and beyond, Dr. Nicole?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm working on designing a meditation program for people who are neurodiverse. So I'm really excited to share that with the community. And I have a work study guide that I'm working on for Insight into a Bright Mind for people to use in study groups. And I have a new book on creativity and creative vision that I'll be working on, that hopefully will come out soon enough.
And we're certainly looking forward to as well, too. Very amazing, Dr. Nicole. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
My biggest influence? Well, I would say my mother and my son, have really been great teachers for me. And my mother through compassion, and my son to teach me how to be compassionate. So
That's very interesting. I like that. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Any advice? You're okay just as you are. There isn't anything you need to do different or to be different.
I like that. I think my brain agrees the same thing. Of course, brain and hearts don't agree, but I think they agree on that one too. So
good. Let them agree on that one.
There you go. We're here with author Dr. Nicole Tetreault of Insight into a Bright Mind, a neuroscientist, personal stories of unique thinking on the Mike Wagner Show. Dr. Nicole, a very big thank you for your time. I learned a lot from you. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date, keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects, what's your website, how do people contact you, or can people purchase or check out your book and other services?
Yeah, just you could check out. I have a speaking page where I'm kind of speaking all over. You could see if you could attend one of those events. NicoleTetreault.com. My Twitter and Instagram are Awesome Neuro. So I hope to see you out there.
Sounds good. We will certainly do that. Once again, Dr. Nicole, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish you all the best, and you've got a great future ahead of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.